Hi dolls! This is our 200th video, which is really cool. And so in honor of that, I thought we would do something a little bit different. And so I brought my brother Brendan onto the channel and we had a really good conversation about Bratz, Barbie, Disney princesses, all the things we talk about on this channel and what it was like being a guy who grew up liking these things and still likes them. We had a really great conversation about the limitations that society and sometimes we ourselves put on us when it comes to gender and age and the things that we like. And yeah, just defying and I guess debunking that whole mindset that society has given to most of us when it comes to these things. I think it's a great conversation that hopefully a lot of you can get something out of. Now this probably is our longest video, it's about an hour long. So if you just want to put it on in the background or just chill, sit down, listen, feel free. And yeah, I hope you enjoy something a little bit different and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Guess we'll jump straight into it and I'll ask you sort of, I guess, how you got into these things in the first place, which is naturally you have sisters and mainly me. And we're 4 years apart, but we grew up very close, and we always sort of did things together and we liked the same things. And then I had Katie as well, and then you were kind of like our little sidekick all the time. So yeah, it was just more of like a natural thing, you just like that. So I guess that's kind of technically how you got into these things. But yeah, and I guess, I don't know, maybe just talk a bit about that and being a kid and what that experience was like.
Yeah, so what is funny about that is because I think the origin of this is that just simply we were such good friends growing up, and even children in our school were like, why are you hanging out with your brother? Sometimes it's even like, why are you hanging out with a boy, or why are you hanging out with a girl? Like, yeah, that was rare enough, let alone brother and sisters for some reason.
And even our niece and nephew, like when we were a bit older, would always say, why don't you two fight more, you're siblings? And I was like, no, we've just always been friends. And
Yeah, that was always a strange thing that you could say a social construct that other people were susceptible to, that perhaps because of our mother's influence we weren't as such, and to us just being friends and just being natural in a lot of ways. Like, I think in a way, like it was, and then especially like once you like met Katie, I think, cause, and it's like, and she had access to the internet, and so we was like, wow, she's like, and then like I would get this, like this Chinese whispers from Katie to you to me, and it was like interests or just knowledge on general things.
Yeah, so like when we were younger, I got into Bratz, and that was sort of my first main interest out of all these main things we talk about. So everybody watches the channel knows, I was Bratz girl before I was a Barbie girl, and Katie as well. And I met Katie when I was about 10 or 9, and she was 10 or something like that. And she was very much into Bratz, and that's how I got into Bratz. And then so naturally Brendan kind of followed, because he sort of just did follow everything that I did, basically. And he had his own interest, but I also liked those things as well. So we just always shared everything, basically. And so whatever Katie shared with me, I then shared with Brendan. And then when Katie would come over, Brendan would also hang out with us, or he'd hang out with us at school sometimes. So he was kind of just like our honorary little third member of our friendship.
I like to think I was like almost like a little Bibbles kind of like just, I even imagine it in my recollection of like just floating around like a little, and my voice was obviously high pitched as a kid, so it's like, what, just going around like that, and it's funny, like, I think it's funny because, like, as I was saying about our mum, in that the way she raised us, it's like, we were raised in a Christian household, and what's funny about that, there are other people who are also raised in that context, but our mother was rather peculiar, and I've met people like this, but it's rare in that she was the type of person that, her version of her personal beliefs and her religious beliefs was always that, boy, girl, differences didn't matter.
Yeah, so that when it comes to our mum, this is probably partly why we always sort of were able to like the same things, is because our mum never taught us that there were specific things that we were supposed to like as girls and as boys. So, you know, Brendan was able to like Bratz because that was not considered a girly thing to my mum, because or our mum, sorry, because she didn't see things like that. And I know a lot of parents do. A lot of parents put those restrictions on their children. You know, you can only like these specific things that are specifically made for girls or for boys. But, you know, Brenda was able to like all my doll stuff and my girly stuff. I was able to like superheroes or cars or trains or whatever was meant to be for boys. And, you know, so that's probably why we had such a good childhood. And, you know, we're able to share so much, and maybe even brought our bond closer because we were able to share the things that we liked and able to relate to each other. And I think it just is able us to enjoy our lives more because we're able to enjoy more things. We're not so boxed in and limited, which I see so many people who have grown up like that. And to this day, it's still kind of stuck in their head that they can't watch this because it's a girl thing, or they can't watch this because it's a boy thing. And especially for guys, I tend to notice that it's more acceptable these days for girls to be into quote unquote guy things. Not always, and it depends who you talk to. But girls can go watch superhero movies and no one's really gonna say anything about that. And I think that's also just the different view that people have on superhero movies today as well.
Yeah.
But it's still very limiting for guys. I have found that, you know, say a guy can't watch a Barbie movie and still be, you know, very masculine or very manly and like other quote unquote, you know, guy things. And things like that. So I think it's very, and it's not just limited to things like Barbie, because Barbie's also an animation, and Bratz and Disney, they're mainly known as animation. So that's another thing, which we'll talk about the age thing soon, but we mainly want to talk about the gender thing in this video because obviously he's a boy, and that's a different take. But yeah, I've noticed it, and so many guys, I think they miss out on so many good things, because let's face it, so many of the good things are the things that are quote unquote made for girls. And that's why I think I was so lucky to grow up in the 2000s where, and there was a lot of good toys and things for boys as well. But as a girl in the 2000s, you had all the good shows. You had Barbie, you had Bratz, you had Winx Club, you had all the Disney movies and the Disney Princess franchise, and you had all these other things, even just non-branded stuff and all these shows that we watched. I think it was just a good time to be a kid, especially as a girl, but also for a boy. But I think if boys can't watch all that good stuff, they're really limited, in my opinion. I don't know, I like being a girl in that way. You had all the good stuff. But I think that we just grew up very differently to most people in that aspect. Most people have like the sort of gender like limitations put on them, and I think that just limits their enjoyment as a kid and even as an adult on the things that they can enjoy. And so thankfully Brendan never had to deal with that because of our mother, and the way that she just saw that was ridiculous, and she wasn't going to put those limitations on us. And there was a show that we often used to watch, a cartoon, some of you might know it, Girl Stuff, Boy Stuff. And the theme song was like, girl stuff, boy stuff. And my mum didn't even want us watching that show because she's, every time it would come on, she'd be like, there's no such thing as girl stuff, boy stuff. And she'd get so offended.
And it's funny, like, she's a very peculiar individual, and I feel very blessed to have her as our mother growing up. And like I said, there are some people who grow up similar, but it's rather rare, which is pretty sad in that way, in this respect of both, you know, not caring about, you know, this is this certain age, or, you know, this is for this, you know, gender. I mean, it's like we grew up, like I said, like on the same level. It's like, you know, you collect dolls now, and obviously you have this YouTube channel, and our mum will still, like, you know, buy you a doll as a Christmas present.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, when we were growing up, like, you know, she would have us watching documentaries or, you know, reading, you know, books that were made for like adults when we were like little kids, and so much that, you know, the teachers at our school were so impressed, because it's like, you know, just saying, this is for this certain age, this is for this certain gender, I think really boxes people.
It really does.
And it just makes, to me, I think it makes people boring and tedious, because there's only, like, if you're a man my age, what are the things you're permitted to be interested in? You know, I'm working class, so you can add to that too. So working class Australian man in his 20s, you know, what, football, you know, cars, anything related to automotive industry, booze, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the first two, bit something wrong with the third, but still, like, yeah, but there's nothing wrong if you like those things genuinely, and if you're a woman and you like those things, it's great. But it's like, why can't I be interested in other things? Even though I'm working class, why can't I be interested in intellectual things? Even though I'm a man and I like being a man, and one day I would like to marry a woman, that doesn't mean, you know, I can't like things that are so-called feminine.
Yeah.
And, or for that matter, I can't like things that are meant for children, which I guess we can, you know, you know, that be a bit later on. I think this first portion's about the gender stuff. And growing up, like, you know, our mum, it's just like instilled in us. And to me, it's just common sense that the differences of gender, they're useful if you're, you know, a doctor, they're useful if you're a biologist, you know, that's where it's useful. But just in these social dynamics. And I think also in
it's totally made up.
It is.
And I talk about this all the time. It's not real. The limits that people put on genders and the things that you're supposed to like. And it's all socially constructed, as we say, like many things are. You know, like, again, we'll talk about the age later. We've talked about it so many times on this channel. It won't be the last time. I'm very passionate about that, being someone who is in my late 20s, you know, and still liking this quote-unquote kid stuff. And then, you know, for Brendan being a guy and being in his 20s as well, you're so limited by this stuff that isn't even real. And like I said, even for guys, I feel like there's less things that you're allowed to be interested in. And it's so silly even when you say it like that, like, you know, are you allowed to be, you know, it's just like there's a law against this or something. And I, like, you know, I actually find it so much more interesting when guys do have more interest than what they are allotted in life. Because seriously, if that's all your interest and you're a very boring person, I'm not really going to want to talk to you. But Brendan and I have a lot of good conversations, and, you know, we can spend a lot of quality time together watching all these things that, you know, because we're not limited by that sort of stupid ideas that, you know, you can't like this as a guy or you can't like this as a girl. And I might be repeating myself, but I think that that's just no real way to live. And you're just boxing yourself in at that point, and it makes no sense why we have just made this up that you have to like this and you have to like that, and because at that point we're all just the same.
And exactly, and because, you know, this is, I think, that both the gender and the age box is something that's very relevant to yourself and, you know, to the things you're passionate about. But I think it seeks a broader, just this idea of boxing and categorizing, because, you know, and this is like personal thing that I have, like when I was a kid growing up, I had quite a few, but like two boxes I was lumped into. They're kind of contradictory in that, you know, we both liked pro wrestling, and that's typically a quote unquote male thing. We liked WWE growing up, and I remember I would, you know, sometimes with kids at school, I would never like get into fights or anything, but like I would be like, hey, you want to wrestle? I'll do a suplex on them or something. And, you know, we're just having fun, and then people would be like, oh, he's a delinquent. Oh, he's this. Oh, he has some mental, you know, something wrong with him.
And I think it's because you actually liked it and you were so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I find these days, you can't actually really be passionate about something. You can't actually show too much care for something. I've noticed in this day and age of people trying to be so nonchalant about everything, and they think that's cool. It's not cool. And I've seen some people online say, you know, this whole nonchalance thing, it's not cool. Care about stuff, be passionate about stuff. And, you know, you were a guy who actually really did like wrestling, not just because you were a guy and that was something you were allowed to like. For me, I wasn't really allowed to like it. I remember that boy in school coming up to me, because I was a very obvious fan of pro wrestling, and, you know, always have been. And a guy would come up to me and be like, why do you like wrestling? You're a girl. And I'll never forget that. And it's just, you kind of expect that, though. You kind of, it's whatever. And even to this day, like, I know I like wrestling more than a lot of guys do, because that's just one thing they're allowed to like, but they don't really like it. It's just like a surface level. They don't know half as much about it as I do. But no, for someone like you, you like this thing that is okay for you to like, but you really, really like it.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's just, again, that putting people into box of things that they like, and this general categorizing that you were talking about. And it just comes down to, like, but you can't really care about it. So it just comes down to, again, aesthetics. And it's just like, oh, you like this thing that suits this aesthetic that you're supposed to have.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a sort of a simulacra of value in that we can no longer simply value something for what it is, for what it gives to us, how it makes us feel emotionally, how it makes us feel intellectually. No, we have to value it in so much as other people perceive us as. And it's like, like I said, I was lumped into this category of, oh, he's too much like a boy, oh, rough and tumble, oh no, he has to sit into a class, and listen to some woman with a soft voice for 7 hours. And yet also, I was also, I really loved watching Bratz with you and Katie, and even our mum would watch sometimes, which was really awesome. And my main thing, I mean, I love the Bratz, of course, and I love, Bratz guys and everything, but to me, like, Burdine and the Tweevils that was really why I loved watching it. To me, they were, like, hilarious.
Yeah.
And, and it's funny to think, because, again, I didn't think in the terms of, they're female characters or something. I just thought they were funny and they embodied just a certain type of character that I wanted to embody in a way. And so much so, like, when you had the sleepover episodes and then the Tweevils had their sassy pink jumper suits, I wanted my mum to get me a pink jumper suit.
She did, didn't she?
And she did. She got me a pink jumper suit. And I would wear that to bed every night. And I remember me and Shen will sometimes, like, have a sleepover, like, as in, like, I would, sleep on the floor in her room, and we'll just, like, watch, like, Bratz, and I'll be wearing my, sleepover episode and be wearing my pink jumper suit. And then it's funny, and I'm sure if, those people at school knew about that, who'd think, oh, they'd put me in an opposite box. They'd say, oh, why is he interested in girly things? Oh, there's something wrong with him. Oh, and, and if that happened today, exactly what they would think.
Yeah.
And then it was, perhaps not as bad. But, and it's like, then I grow up, and it's like, I just look at that as, the folly of youth, as it were.
Yeah, just being a kid. And it was funny because you found Burdine and the Tweevils funny.
Yeah.
And again, going back to our mum, she was more than happy to buy you a pink jumper suit. And she wasn't worried about her boy being in pink. Because one, pink being a girl colour it's also another made up thing. It used to actually be a boy colour.
I mean, we like pro wrestling. My favourite pro wrestler, Bret the Hitman Hart. Pink and black attack. He made pink, him and Jim the Anvil and Owen Hart, they made pink, the masculine colour.
Yeah.
In my mind. And on top of that, I say masculine as much as, but, as in just like, they look awesome as men in that colour. And then you have like a character like Burdine. To me, I just thought she was like, it sounds funny, she was like an awesome character to me. Like,
she is. She's a boss.
She is. She's like, she's a queen. Like, just it embodies this like, just, I think there's because I'm not a very arrogant person, and you're even less of an arrogant person than I am. I mean, I'm not a very arrogant person. I'm great now. No, but like, at least compared to Burdine, but it's like, in a way, I want to like embody that in a way. Like, when I go out into the world, to have that chutzpah.
I don't think I've heard that word in a while.
but to have that, just that gravitas, and that's like, and I also just, of course, I found, obviously, the Bratz themselves, I thought they were good characters, and you and I were talking, and I actually, growing up as a kid, I never, because, the Tweevils and Burdine weren't in the live action Bratz adaptation, I thought it was good, I thought it was fine, I never really particularly liked that movie very much, but you and I started talking about that recently, and I realised, like, what a fantastic film that was. That was a film that more people need to see, in that it really I feel like, it looks at the different struggles, and I was just like, it has everything in there. It's like, you have Chloe, and, she's raised by a single mum, who's a hard-working single mum, and then you have, Sasha, and her parents are divorced, and she's dealing with that, and then you have Yasmin, and she has a lot of different problems, and she has her relationship with her Hispanic culture and how that pertains to her. And then you have Jade, and her mum's Asian, I think it was Japanese. and I think her father was American. And it's like, and her relationship with this, and you get this with a lot of people, and I'm thinking like as an adult,
all those things are real struggles.
like people,
real life stuff.
Parents divorced, hard work, and in America, we're blessed to live in Australia where we have a welfare system that our mum could take care of us so that we can grow up to become, functioning members of society and give back to what the country gave to us growing up. In America, they don't have that. A woman that, like Chloe's in America, she had to work. And like the fact that she did all that for her daughter. And then of course, Sasha's parents being divorced and everything. And then I think like with Jade, that I've seen that a lot of people, they're parents from two different cultures. Sometimes they end up resenting one of that culture, whichever one it is. And you realize, at the end, I just thought it was so beautiful that, she realized, actually understood that, her mum cared so much for her. It really is about, and it sounds so funny, it sounds like a truism, but it is more real today than it ever was. Be yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be the best version of yourself, by all means.
Yeah, and the Bratz sort of showed that. I love that movie for all the reasons that we just said, how real it is and how, and that's why I call it Bratz for real. That's what the movie was sort of marketed as, and it wasn't just the Bratz as real life people. It was the Bratz as real life people in real life situations, because the cartoon is really great, but it's very silly, and that's probably why we like it.
Exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, and it also has really great messages and values in the cartoon as well. But the Bratz for real, the movie, it really brought, especially at that time, that's what American high schools were like. And probably still are to this day. They might even be worse today in some ways, I don't know. But that's what they were like in the 2000s. You had all your cliques and everything. And, Katie and I have experienced that kind of thing. So that's why we sort of like that as well. And, we love it for the themes of friendship, which is what Bratz is all about. What it used to be all about. And you have these brats in their real life struggles, not just being teenagers going to this high school, but with their families and with their friendship. And at the core of it, it was always, again, being yourself and staying true to yourself. And, you can be friends with anybody kind of thing. You don't have to fit into this. Again, they did not fit into boxes.
Exactly. And then they added, Dylan, who was one of the silliest characters of the cartoon.
Yeah.
They ended, they made him deaf, and they made him, one of the more wholesome characters in that film.
Yeah,
and
I love, he's my favourite character. I love him.
Exactly. And I always just felt like, it's funny, and I say this just like such a wholesome person.
Yeah.
And I feel just so beautiful in the way they did that.
And that's a great change. You talk about live actions and how they change everything. I think the Bratz, the movie, they really adapted it into live action in probably the best way. And you wish that when they made live actions out of cartoons, that's just what they did. They did make it more real, and there were still some funny things in it for sure. It's not like it was an entirely serious movie, and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of real life things that are relatable and inspiring for young girls, tween girls, teen girls, and boys, obviously, because Brendan got something out of that, and I think a lot of boys could get something out of that as well.
Exactly.
If they were allowed to, if they had the chance. Thankfully, he had the chance.
And I think and I was thinking, it's really like a wholesome picture of life that movie was. It's and it's interesting, and they turned from silly cartoon. I don't say that insulting to the cartoon. It is great for what it is. But they turned that into something that I think is truly impactful. And there are a lot of, there's this version, now it's for adults, like something that, before you can't watch, Barbie Island Princess, but you can watch Greta Gerwig's Barbie, right? And of course, I don't want to get too sidetracked in that. I think that movie was one of the biggest missed opportunities of the last decade in Hollywood. It could have made a great film. There was one idea in the film that could have been great, and they turned into an absolutely abysmal mess. And one thing is that because they think there's this, I guess you could say there's this faux morality in Hollywood, and then this faux, again, this is an adult thing. They think adult equals Family Guy. Adult equals crude humor. No, it doesn't. Adult equals ideas that only a truly mature person can contemplate. That's what makes something adult. And I think that's ironically there in that Bratz movie from the 2000s.
And it's not in the Barbie movie, and it's not going to be in the new make of a live action Bratz.
Exactly. Like, it deals with, in that, and everyone, again, the faux morality of modern Hollywood, talking about diversity and all this stuff, and it's not really there. It's really, everyone has the same, it's the same person, they just changed the shades or they changed the gender. But really, we look at something like Bratz, it really, at that movie, it
It actually was diverse, wasn't
it
it?
was truly
And
diverse.
the casting was really great for all the girls.
Exactly. It's like, and I think like it deals with, like I said, that when they included Dylan and everything, like
Yeah.
it includes, disabilities.
Yeah.
It includes, class issues which pertain to Chloe and everything. And then it includes, you have the
And
issues,
even discrimination of like cliques and stuff,
discrimination of cliques.
which young people go through a lot.
Exactly, or like I mentioned prior, a lot of the things that go, the hardships that go on for people with parents of two different cultures, or you see like, and you look at say Sasha. I think it's you look at say she's African American, and African Americans at one point in America had the lowest divorce rate, and then now they have amongst the highest divorce rates in America. And
that was very real for them to show.
And that is very real for them to show, and that's extremely sad that that is the case. And I feel like it was almost moralizing. You can imagine if you're, a little African American girl watching that. And again, if you're a working class girl watching that for single mum, you see these things, you are inspired by these characters. And of course, a white girl can be inspired by Sasha. You don't have to be Hispanic to be inspired by Yasmin. That's not what we're saying, but it's saying that anyone can be. But it even has very specific things that people go through, a true diversity of, again, not just the same annoying Greta Gerwig, oh, aren't I snarky? Aren't I smart? Oh, I'm making fun of a children's toy. Aren't I so brave? You're not brave.
Exactly.
This movie was actually brave, and it actually had something to say. And I think it has a moralizing effect for anyone. Again, male, female, young, old. I think it has a moralizing effect for people. I know this has actually become about, it's about, really, watch this movie. Please watch this movie.
Well, it needs to, because Katie and I are going to make another video about Bratz at some point. We have a lot to say, but we also wanted to defend Bratz the movie because there's so much people always kind of hating on it, and there always has been, especially these days, and people, oh, it's so bad, oh, it's so cringy, corny or whatever. I'm like, no, when you actually step back to watch it, and remember the time it was made in, oh, it's so 2000s, you're supposed to like the 2000s these days. Like, yes, it was made when it was made. Like, I don't see what's cringy about it.
Exactly.
It was real, especially for the time it was made.
It's wholesome, sincere, and good.
It is. Exactly.
And not get sidetracked again. Watch that movie. You probably make a review of that. But it's even to say like other things like it's funny, like I said, Katie was actually something who got us into a lot of things. She got ultimately us into pro wrestling, Bratz, and those were like the two big ones. There were other things, but those are the two big ones. And and it's like when it came to that, and then it's like other things like Disney movies. To me, I saw Disney. I maybe this is the way I am. I always like looking at directors and filmmakers and things. Like who's behind these great things. And yet I didn't have the internet. All I had was VHS tapes and the occasional DVD. And and I would look into these things, and I would say, "Oh, Disney," and I would learn about him, and to me it was like this good, wholesome company that made these good animated movies. And it's sad to see what, of course, it's become. But that's what it felt like to me as a kid. And you look at again like. At Disney, I think it's more acceptable for both adults and males to be interested in.
Not completely, because you still have those people that, will trash on you for being a quote-unquote Disney adult. That's an insult these days, which we won't even go on about because I feel like that's a whole separate rant.
I mean, you can have a 2-hour-long video on that alone, really. Yeah. I mean, like what I was going to actually mention, we talked about this. I saw on X, formerly Twitter, that there was this woman, and of course the truth is, it doesn't matter. You can be a woman, you can just, you can be like a literal cat lady. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually live your life. If that's what you are, not every woman has to get married. Not every woman has to have children. And the only women who should do that are the women who want to do that, and the women who God designed for that. Some women just don't want that, and that's great. But this woman actually did that. This one, she's a Christian woman, she's a mother, she worked as a nurse. You think of how many children she's helped save the lives of. As not to mention her children who she's educated, brought up, just a wholesome Christian woman. and she was diagnosed with cancer, and her children and her husband took her to Disneyland for the first time. She's never been. She was a huge Disney film fan. And she's seeing this video. It's such a beautiful video. It's so cute and wholesome. This woman, and then this trad wife influencer, or whatever they call themselves, comes on, and she's making fun of this woman, calling her a Disney adult, as if that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, what have you done for this world that this woman has done? That she has done so much. And it's like, again, like I said, she doesn't have to be a mother. She doesn't have to be a nurse. It doesn't matter what you are. But it's like, even that, she's done everything that you supposedly promote. Of like, this is what an adult should do, and yet you still judge her. And that is really to show that these people, they don't have a morality. All these people judging people for their age, their gender, and all this stuff, they have no moral backbone. It is... I'll just say it. I think they're evil people, or they're misguided people driven by evil people.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and that's what's been shown. And it's like what I was just mentioned about Disney movies. It's like, to me, and they also get everyone on the, every side of everything has something bad to say about old Disney movies. But I always saw them as very inspirational characters. I thought they had virtue, and the virtues that they promoted weren't virtues that you would see in most cinema. It was general virtues of patience, of humility, and I always think of Belle. She's my favorite out of the Disney princesses. To me, and I don't mean this in how she looks or how she sounds, but I just thought her character was something like, I thought that is an ideal woman. Just her character, the fact that she has such love and devotion for everything, for a candlestick, for a little teacup, and obviously, and for the beast. And she's not, and this is the whole point of this video, she doesn't think on a surface level. She sees Gaston as the beast who he is, where she sees the beast as the man who he truly is. And that's something that I think everyone listening to this should really look and say, what are we as a culture looking at the surface level? That, this, Shannon, she collects Barbie dolls. How bad, however that is. Or are we really seeing, is she not more mature than this average woman? And, we don't have to, there's that C.S. Lewis quote, and I have not memorized it.
Yes. I'm going to look it up while you keep talking.
Yeah, and it's like C.S.
I can't look it up while using my phone. But he basically said, I should put the whole quote up there, maybe at the end of this video or something.
Good idea, yeah.
But he basically said, when I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of being childish, or and the desire to be very grown up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not quoting that very well, but and that's probably one of my, if not my favorite quote, because I obviously relate to that very much, because I will always, I think, have the struggle of people looking at me and they're like, why do you like Barbies? You're this age, and all that kind of stuff. And why do you watch cartoons and everything? Thankfully, I don't have the gender thing. Well, I do if some people, when it comes to pro wrestling, some people still think, why do you like that? Because you're a girl. Not as much as they used to.
Yeah.
But there's that, and I still love pro wrestling. I always will. Rock music, for some reason, is considered more of a guy thing, or certainly not like someone that...
that was news to me, but they gender everything.
I've been told that before. I think I said I like rock music, some metal music as well. I like a lot of music. And the thing is, I love classical music. I love some pop music, especially 80s pop. I love opera. I love country music sometimes. I love rock and metal, I just like a lot of music, and if it's good music, it's good music. But some of those things, some people only expect me to like pop music because I'm a very girly girl.
Yeah.
And I am a very girly girl, and I always have been. But I've always liked rock music. From, I think, getting into pro wrestling helped with that. Our dad was sort of into a lot of, classic rock.
Yeah,
ballads.
and...
Remember our sister was always into punk rock. So I got into that as well. And then pro wrestling as well kind of introduced me to a lot of rock music. But I've always liked it. And I think there's a lot of goodness and actual wholesomeness actually in a lot of rock music.
Oh, I agree totally.
But people
Yeah.
don't see that because, again, it's on a surface level.
And-
Like, that doesn't match my quote unquote aesthetic because I like pink and I like flowers and I like sparkly things and I collect Barbies and all that kind of stuff. But I watch pro wrestling and I like rock music and I like to go to the gym and lift weights. Like, and none of that is contradictory. I'm just going to go out and say that is not contradictory. Like, I will go into the gym and lift weights and then I'll come and put my flowery dress on and prance around in a field.
Yeah.
Like, that's not contradictory. But the thing is, people think it is. And for someone like you, you know, you can sit down and watch a Barbie movie with me at night, and then you'll go to the gym and lift your weights because that's a thing that's okay for guys. But watching the Barbie movie isn't. But again, that's not contradictory for him.
Exactly, and it doesn't subtract away from my masculinity.
One does not negate the other, Johnny.
Oh no, not Amber Heard, but it doesn't subtract away from a man's sense of his self. It's
At least it shouldn't.
Yeah, and I was trying to decipher. I'm big into philosophy. I dare to say Stoicism, although that itself has been ruined by the internet. That word at least. But about Greek philosophy is that it really is what is the essence underlying everything. When you say chair, what is the essence of a chair? Can this be a chair? And it's always what is masculinity? What is the essence of a man? And it is really just the virtue that is appointed unto any given man. And the truth is 99% of virtues that are accorded unto man can be accorded to a woman as well. It's this gender stuff. It's like, in medieval times, you always talk about the tradwife stuff. With the exception of blacksmithing, just about every single trade women did as well. And that's the case with everything in this world. And I think there's a type of implicit chauvinism in our culture to where, as you were saying before, girls can like boy things, but boys cannot like girl things. And implicit in that is that to be girl-like, to be female, to be feminine, is to be lesser, is to be demure, is to be submissive, is basically kind of like to be a slave, whereas to be a man is to be the slave master. And of course, those that might sound a bit extreme to people, and I'm using an extreme analogy to point out how evil this chauvinism is, and the fact that most people, even people who think they're progressive, have this underlying implicit idea in them, in this culture. Whereas again, a woman like our mum, whom those people in the world would judge, was implicitly so much more progressive, in that, she would get outraged when this girl stuff, boy stuff cartoon. There's no such thing. And I grew up, like I said, the pink jumper suit. When I was very little, one of my favorite toys was a baby doll.
Yeah.
I named her Suki, and I even made her a girl, which is interesting.
And that kind of thinking it shows in everything, and it just shows in the fact that everything we're saying now and in the things that you like, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad that it's rare. I'm really glad that you were raised by our mum.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just raised by parents. I'm not saying they're bad parents, but I'm just saying they have these very silly ideas of and putting their children into boxes all the time. And that actually, especially for boys, I think it's very important to raise boys to not think in that terms of they're so separate to girls and they can't like anything that's girly, or I think it creates this whole really actually toxic way of thinking, and I think it brings a lot of toxic masculinity into the mindset of boys as they become men. And we see that's so prevalent in our society today. Genuine toxic masculinity, I know that word's used a lot, but I'm speaking in a genuine sense.
Exactly.
And I think people don't even realize toxic masculinity, it can be more subtle sometimes. And I see it as even a guy saying, I can't watch this movie because that's for girls. And it's not necessarily a Barbie movie or even an animated movie. It could be something like a musical, which is more considered for girls or whatever, or a romance movie, or something.
Which I find funny. You need the romance thing is so funny. I mean, I understand culturally women are more interested in that, whether that's nature or whether that's socio-cultural. I tend towards the latter, but they are. But it's funny. You need two to tango. You know, you
Yeah.
need a man and a woman for there to be a romance. You can't. So why is it somehow effeminate to be interested in that? That it just. I actually remember especially thinking that was weird. Even when I was a kid, I thought that was a weird little social construct there. But it's like, you know, and so I was thinking, even hopefully when I have a daughter, it's like if I, you know, when I'm older, you know, I would be so proud of her if she was, you know, interested in quote unquote male things, if she was interested in quote unquote things for children. You know, it's like she could be, you know, she could be daughter, she could be interested in playing football or becoming a professional wrestler. I would be proud.
Like I was.
Like I mean, well, professional wrestler, I'd be kind of scared to break your neck. But you know, aside from that, I'd be proud of her. And if she was an adult, and she not even Barbie dolls, like something which is supposedly for like maybe 10-year-olds, but if she collected like Teletubby dolls, which is like for supposedly for like 3-year-olds, if she did that, I would be proud of her.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be proud if she was an immoral person. And I think that's, you know, I'm actually not against judging people. I'm in favor of judging people for their moral character. We
Yeah.
shouldn't judge people for immutable characteristics such as race, gender, age. And we shouldn't judge people if they like just wholesome things. If a guy likes playing a video game, great. If a woman likes playing a video game, great. If they like collecting Pingu dolls, great. If they like cars, automotive things, things that are considered okay, great. That's good. Are you hurting anyone? Are you corrupting the youth? Are you corrupting society? If yes, then I can judge you.
Yeah.
It's not even about judge, not just be judged. It's like, no, we can judge if you're, and you know, that's what I said. I'm not going to judge that quote unquote Disney adult woman. I'm going to judge the woman who's judging her.
Exactly.
Because that woman has a rotten soul, not that beautiful woman who may even die of cancer.
Exactly. And you're judging someone who you know is in that situation. That just shows how much of a low person that you are. And again, to judge anyone for anything that they like, I think is incredibly low, and that's actually childish.
It is.
It's childish behavior. It really is. And that's why I really like that quote by C.S. Lewis.
Exactly.
Saying that the desire to be so grown up or to appear very grown up and to only be into grown up things, or again, things of your gender, quote unquote, that's actually childish thinking.
Yeah.
And once you mature, you don't judge people for the things that they like. You judge them based on like how they treat others.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that is the only thing that matters at the end of the day. People always judge on such superficial things, like things that people like, how someone looks, you know, whatever, what someone does for a job. All of those things are so superficial and aren't going to matter at the end of the day and at the end of all of our lives. You know, when we die, you know, no one's going to talk about what you did for work. No one's going to talk about how you looked. No one's going to talk about necessarily the things that you like, maybe the things that, but they're not going to be sitting there judging you for it. They're going to remember it fondly. But they're going to be thinking about how you treated others and how you made them feel and what you sort of did for this world in that way. And when we think about that and really put that into perspective, we shouldn't ever judge someone for all those other things. And in fact, the fact that someone likes something and has an interest in something makes them more of an interesting person to talk to. You can have a conversation with them, you can bond with them, like as we have done, as I have done with Katie, as I've done with a lot of the friends that I've met online through the things that I like. Like I have made friends, and we talk about how hard it is to make friends as an adult, and it is, but I'm lucky because I have made friends online through the things that I like. What if I didn't have those interests? Maybe I wouldn't have as many friends that I have. Because how do you make friends when you have no interest? What do you bond over?
Exactly. And I think to a certain level we might be preaching to the choir, but I think that's a good thing. I want to moralize the people who are listening to this to
And
realize
encourage them.
Yeah. They don't have to feel that they have. Like, I've done that in the past. Like I'll say, you know, something like pro wrestling, although a male thing, might be seen as, oh, that's childish. Once you get to a certain age, you like the UFC because that's real. Like as if at any point once my age was in the double digits, I thought pro wrestling was real. No wrestling fan thinks it's real. We like it because it's entertaining. So it's just a silly thing. Oh, no. That was a big part of my childhood. That was a big part of yours and I's relationship.
Yeah.
That was something that heavily impacted us. Our lexicon, our memes with each other, the way we think, the things we value. And of course, Bratz, Disney, Barbie, more so for yourself than me, but that also had a big impact on my life.
Yeah.
And should I demean that? And to think like, the truth is, I would say this to everyone, what do you want, what do you think people would? And would you be fine? Would you be happy with people saying at your funeral?
Yeah.
If Shannon, if Shannon had a funeral in 80 years' time, someone will be there and they might say she was really into collecting Barbie dolls. That would actually be something people in the audience, and she would be, when she was 100 years old, she'd still be collecting them. People would
I'll be buried with them so that people will have to talk about it.
And they might even have a Barbie doll like on the coffin, right? That would actually be something they would find it heartwarming. Those are the things people talk about. Will they talk about, oh, this woman, oh, she went on so many dates with men. She went to so many parties. I think people would be very much morally disgusted if someone happened to mention that at a funeral. And that's what I'm saying. These are the things. No one will be morally disgusted if Shannon, when she's 100 years old, still collecting Barbie dolls. These are the things. These are good, wholesome things. If something is good, wholesome, and it brings joy to your life, and it's something that makes you get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do my 10-hour shift, I'm going to do this, and again, it does whatever you want. These are hardships everyone enjoys. People, and that's what's all about the Bratz movie. It deals with real hardships, disability, loneliness, being bullied, which is more of a teenage thing, but even then adults endure that, especially in the social media age. Or being, a working class person, or just being someone who you don't have a job, you're out of the job, you're unemployed. These are real life things. And you know what can help people with that? Sometimes it might just be playing a video game. Sometimes it might be collecting Barbie dolls, or watching a Barbie movie, or watching some pro wrestling, or anything like, you might even like Winx Club. That's something that Shannon, that's kind of unique to Shannon, because it was a bit, by the time she got into it, I was a bit older and I wasn't as, at the time, and I wasn't as interested in, and Katie also just happens not to have watched that. So that's unique to her. That gives her joy in her life, right? They're things unique to me. Like, so I like philosophy, I love history, anything 18th century, 19th century, I love that. That inspires me to be the man I am. And those are good, wholesome things we should promote. And again, everyone can be an individual. You don't have to love the American Civil War like I do. You can love the Roman Empire. You can love, collecting Teletubby toys. It doesn't matter. If it gives you joy, if it moralizes you to get up in the morning, even if you're lonely, even if you don't feel loved, you want a friend, you want a lifelong spouse, you want a fulfilling job, you want your own house. These are real struggles. If this gets you up in the morning and makes you motivated to make you the best person you can be, more power to you. And you should, and not only should you feel, moralized by that, you should also judge the people who are judging you and say, what are you doing with your life? You're, going on these million dates. You're going on these parties. You're getting drunk on Friday night. You are actually contributing to suffering in this world. Me collecting Barbie dolls, that's not contributing to suffering. If anything, that's making the world a better place.
Yeah. And that's really great, and I think people are going to get a lot from that. And also, again, you liking things like Barbie and all those other quote-unquote girly things, that also contributes to the person that you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from your masculinity or whatever, and I hate those words so much, because, again, define what that is. But, it adds to the person that you are, and it adds to the man that you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I will also say, the same women who, back 10 years ago, when you were in your room starting your much more comparatively meager Barbie collection,
Yeah.
you were there and you're wearing pink in your pink room with your pink Barbies, they were at that time saying, oh, I like the color blue. Aren't I edgy?
Yeah.
Aren't I? And so they were LARPing like they were in some sort of independent woman at the time. And now that LARP, that live action role play, has ceased to have any relevance. And you're still the same person. You're still going to the gym. And now they're LARPing as a trad wife. They're LARPing as feminine.
Yeah,
they like pink again.
Yeah, they like pink again, and now they're putting on all their flowery dresses. Half my wardrobe is flowery dresses.
Yeah.
And has been for like at least a decade now. Because yes, you grow and you sort of become more of yourself as you get older naturally. But I've always been myself.
Yeah.
I have always been the same person essentially. And that same person is really girly. I do like all those things. But I also like doing those things that are quote unquote guy things. Because that's just, I don't see it that way. I don't see my love of Barbie necessarily as a girly thing. That's why I'm totally okay with Brendan liking it. Or other guys for that matter. I want all guys to like it. Like, I will force you to watch a Barbie movie with me, man. Okay? You would know what's good for you. But yeah. But, you know, I never had to say, oh, look at me. I'm this, I'm that. Because it's not about aesthetics. People are people. We're not aesthetics.
Yeah.
We're not aesthetics according to our age, according to our gender, or our social class status, whatever. We are who we are.
Yeah.
And I never had to parade that to anyone. I like to express who you know, that's why we have this YouTube channel and why we have our Instagrams and everything, because I just like sharing the things that I love with other people who also love it. It's not in any way to show off, look at me, I'm so girly and feminine.
Yeah.
Or look at me, I'm so anti-girly and feminine.
And
you know,
exactly.
it's
and
just,
you know,
and
we're both, and both of us, you know, and people say, oh, again, another thing in the box, you are this, so you have to be that. No, what does this category actually mean? You know, my principles is that I'm foremost a Christian, but I'm also a feminist. And feminism does not mean what people think it means. There are immoral people who portray feminism as meaning something immoral, which they do with every ideology.
Yeah.
Every ideology, doesn't matter what it is, liberalism doesn't matter. Evil people use it for evil ends. But feminism, as per the dictionary definition, a woman can genuinely be a housewife and be a feminist.
yeah.
A woman can be a housewife, she can be a nurse, she can be like yourself, working your job and collecting Barbie dolls. It doesn't matter. All feminism is to say women have the political right, the economic feasibility, and socially, the social obligation to do what they want to do, what makes their life happy, and I would add with the caveat, as long as what they're doing isn't immoral.
Yeah.
You know, as a Christian. Like that's all that is. And you know what? And some women will be housewives. Great. And if you're a housewife watching this, if you have children and your job is taking care of those children, do not feel that we're in any way judging you. You live your life. That is great. I want you to be the best mother you can possibly be to those children. But also do not judge those women who are not mothers because they haven't found the right man yet, or because they have but they just don't want to have kids, or they can't even have kids. Those women are also great when they're living their lives. Just let people live their lives to be the most virtuous person they can be.
Yeah.
And that's all I really have to say.
Yeah. And again, just the whole point of this video is more to talk to guys as well. And just to put that out there because it's not so much spoken about. You know, as a guy, you can like things as well, and stop judging men, and men need to stop judging themselves and putting this faux masculinity mask on them. Like it's a problem for women too, and expectations that people have for your gender. There shouldn't be there. They don't need to be there.
Yeah.
You can like whatever you like. That does not make you less of a man. And you know, and like I was going to say before, you know, you admire characters like Belle and Barbie, you know, for their character, and I do too. And it's not because they're so girly or because it's pink. For me, I truly love Barbie because I love her character. I want to emanate that character, her goodness and her kindness, the way that she treats other people, the way she inspires and uplifts other people and brings hope and just general good warm feelings. Like I want to make other people feel the way that Barbie makes me feel. And you actually can say the same thing.
Yeah.
and because of course people aren't really necessarily going to judge me for that as a woman. They'll judge me for that as a 27-year-old woman, but they won't judge me for that as a woman. They will judge you for that because you're a guy and you can't, to look up to a woman or admire a woman in any way, even a fictional woman, that's not masculine, because women are meant to be seen as less by men, but you don't see women as less. You really do have respect for women, and if a woman is a good person and she has good qualities, you will see that and admire that, like you do in a lot of the Disney princesses and in Barbie. Which before we end the video, I'll talk a little bit about Barbie, because that's sort of the main thing we're going to talk about. And it kind of we talked about Bratz and Disney, so I suppose to talk about Barbie as well, because that's like a thing on it. Well, we are Barbie lovers after all. But yeah, like what you sort of admire about Barbie, and you know, I guess why you sort of like these things. Even we've touched on it a little bit, and like how you got into it and some of your thoughts, but why you got into this, and like why you still like it, and what you see in Barbie and the Barbie movies. You know, you mentioned that you also liked the male characters in there, so
I'll mention both. I mean, as for Barbie, a character in itself, as per, you know, the classic movies that I've seen and that I enjoy, I think it very similar to Belle in the way, very similar characters in that it's as much as the word feminine is overused, a truly beautiful feminine woman who is comfortable with the fact that she is a woman, being put into these difficult situations where she has to prove herself, and that she shows that she truly is the virtuous one and she deserves to have that happy ending. And, you know, we watched Rapunzel just the last night. You know, the fact when she saved the life of the dragon, she didn't have to do that. She didn't even have much of a relationship with that, with the father. She did with his daughter, and she loved her so much. And she even had such a total love for even this dragon that was supposedly guarding her from leaving, that she would risk everything for him. And that is showing like an emotion. That is a character that people, especially children, and little girls, but also boys, can really admire, which I admire. And as per the, I guess you could say the Kens, I don't know if you call
the
them
Ken. They're all Ken.
The Kens, like probably my favourite Ken in the Barbie movies would be Aiden from Magic of Pegasus, which is, by the way...
He has the most character.
Yeah, which is, by the way, my favourite out of the Barbie movies. And I think he really does express a lot of things, and I think, you know, and I think we should end it on talking about, you know, I'll just say that he, at the beginning, he shows himself he's a guarded man, and a lot of men are very guarded because of trauma, and he has this backstory, and his backstory is, of course, it's basically like the prodigal son that Jesus told. He got all this money and he wasted it, and now he feels shamed. He cannot go back to see his father, and he wants to make himself better. He wants to reclaim that for his father, to show he is a worthy son. And so he seems guarded when he meets Barbie. He sees guarded when he meets her, and when he sees the polar bear shiver, like he sees her, and he's a bit funny little thing, but he eventually warms to her, and he sees that he is an honourable man. He is a man who cares about these things. He's made mistakes in the past, haven't we all? Is that not relatable? But he seeks to do the honourable thing for his parents. And by doing that, he sacrifices everything then for Barbie. And I mean, that is a brilliant, you know, story for what, you know, for romantic love is when you finally meet your wife. He lives for his parents, but he will even sacrifice that for this woman to make a new family with. But by doing that, he actually saves his parents. He saves that, and becomes this great man. And I think he's the most admirable out of all of them in the Barbie movies. And he's someone I you know, as a fictional character I look to. Very much emulates a lot of real life men that I look up towards. And so there really is a lot in them, I think. You know, there's no, if you just want to enjoy a silly time watching, you know, a silly cartoon, you can do that as a man. You can also watch these things that are about emotions, that are about romance, that are about relationships, not just action thing get blown up.
Yeah.
And you not only are not lesser for a man, it can actually increase the fact that you are a man, and the fact that you can have this sensitivity towards women. That doesn't mean you're a wimp. Like, I've, you know, physically defended people in the past. I work out. I like to think I'm physically strong. That doesn't mean
strong. From when we used to wrestle, I will never wrestle you again.
and that's great. And, you know, if you're a man, you do that. But if you're a sensitive man, you should love cute things. You should love the innocent. that doesn't take away from the fact that I am a man.
Exactly. It adds to you are a man of quality,
Exactly.
as I always
But
say.
qualitative man.
Yeah, exactly. Because you see the quality in things, you know, like the character of Aiden, but also like the character of Barbie and her character progression in that movie as well, because she also made mistakes, and how they come together and they really help each other in that sort of way, because they're both human and they both grow, and you know, one's not lesser than the other. And you can take that from a male character in Barbie, but you can also take it from Barbie's character herself, and that doesn't make you any less of a guy, because you see value and virtue in this female character. Like, it's just like, you see, it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman, you see value and virtue in someone, you see quality in them, you see characteristics that you would like to emanate and that you would like to see more of in the world, and you see that in something like Barbie and Disney and things like that.
Exactly, yeah.
And you being a guy doesn't blind you to all those things. And like, you know, people will say something like, oh, Barbie's softness and her kindness and all that kind of stuff, that's a feminine virtue. What?
A man can't be kind?
I was gonna say,
men are cruel?
I was going to say, because men can't be kind.
That's a bit misandrist.
Men can't be good. But that's the thing is, like, and again, they view softness as weakness.
Yeah.
They view femininity as weakness. And all that kind of stuff. And men don't want to be weak. Well, guess what? Women don't want to be weak either. I mean, some act like they do, but we don't, okay? And we look up to characters like Barbie and stuff who are strong. And, like, you look up to it like I do, yeah. So, yeah, basically the whole point of this video is to say that as a guy, you can still look at these things and be like, yeah, that's something that I want to be. Because, like, a man should admire goodness and kindness and all those virtues that Barbie has and all those other things. So basically, is to not be so superficial about these things. And yeah, if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just really don't care, you know, well, first, if there is anyone who still believes in the gender and the age stuff, I hope I've convinced you. I hope Shannon's convinced you, and if not, I'm sure she's going to make several other videos, and perhaps I'll be involved in them too, if you need more convincing. But really, if you're just, you know, a fan of this channel or someone who just comes across it, and I hope that this discussion has meant something to you, and I hope that it can motivate you to realize there is nothing wrong with liking something that's, you know, supposedly for a younger age, or for an older age, I guess, or, you know, vice versa. And, you know, especially if you're a man, there's nothing wrong with liking something that's quote unquote feminine.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
because again, it's all those ideas are very superficial, and we need to look deeper into these things. So yeah, all right. I suppose that although we could keep talking for ages, this video is already over an hour. So
Yeah, I know. We said it would be under an hour, but time. I don't know.
I get very passionate about talking about this, but yeah. All right, that's it, I guess. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.